Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. And yes, I have brought out the white scarf of irredeemable chutzpah because I've got a record that is so horrible, so stupid, so indefensibly ludicrous that I'm going to have a fabulous time telling you about it. I really am. First, there was Roger Norrington. Then there was Theodore Karensis. And just when you thought Beethoven couldn't take any more abuse, out comes Cristofori, conducted by what's this guy? Arthur Snickerdoodle. Yes, here he is with Cristofori, both of them. And they are doing, get this, folks. You listening hard? They're doing the Coriolan Overture and the Eroica with single strings. Actually, they're using two violas, two violins, two violas, a cello, and a double bass. Oh my God. Let me make sure I have that right because I didn't believe it at first. But yes, two violins, two violas, one cello, one double bass, and the full complement of woodwind, brass, and timpani. Now, if you think that's going to sound like shit, you are right. Not only does it sound like shit, there is more to it than that, more in the defecatory realm than you might have dreamed possible. Why? Because the theory behind this was the same absurd theory that characterized Snickerdoodle's horrible performances with these people of the Beethoven piano concertos. Actually, his name is not Snickerdoodle. It's Schoonderwoerd. But I don't care. It's just, Anyway, so here's the point. His theory was, which is explained at length in the incredibly pompous and pretentious interview in the booklet, which I'm not going to read. I mean, I could just do a whole thing reading this, letting it speak for itself. But no, the idea here is that Beethoven, did not always have access to large orchestras, and his royal patrons like Prince Lobkowitz and Archduke Rudolph and all these people, they played his music privately with their private forces in smallish rooms with teeny tiny instrumental forces. Now, they had to use the full complement of woodwinds and brass and timpani because those are essentially solo parts. But for strings, no. They just found a few and did it that way so they could hear these pieces in their teeny tiny itsy bitsy spaces. Now, these spaces weren't so small. They may not have been huge, but I just imagine what they're doing here. Let's say Prince Lobkowitz, likes to listen to music when he's on the toilet. He calls his little intrepid group and says, "Come with me." And he gets on the toilet or he gets in the shower and they play the Eroica Symphony. They're all crammed into the bathroom. That's what this is. This is Beethoven in the bathroom. Because after all, if you wanted to hear the symphony in those days when you went to the bathroom, you had to take it with you. All of it. That's what this is. That's the absurd, logical conclusion to this. That they had these tiny little bands running around playing all of this music for large orchestra. And the justification for it is simply that it might have happened that way. There's no evidence, actually, that it happened that way in the sense that this would have been a regular occurrence or it was a preferred way to play the music or that Beethoven ever dreamed in his wildest nightmare that people would play these pieces that way. But this is the logic. The logic is, well, if it could have happened that way, then I have scholarly sanction to do it that way, to recreate it that way. And that's what it really boils down to, because the truth of the matter is, unless they had some sort of scholarly apparatus supporting the theory that an actual performance might have taken place in a room of X dimensions, I mean, maybe the bathroom was too large, maybe they did it in the closet, it doesn't matter. They would never have done it unless they had this background. It is such a misapplication of scholarship, for a totally, completely, utterly unmusical purpose. And I have to quote my dear friend Tovey on this because what he said is so valuable. I want you to hear this. Think about it. Listen, Mr. Snickerdoodle. Think about this really hard. Tovey said, scholarship itself is not obliged to insist on the restoration of conditions that ought never to have existed. Let me say that again. Scholarship itself is not obliged to insist on the restoration of conditions that ought never to have existed. Get it? If anything is a condition that ought never to have existed, it is a circumstance where a bunch of players gather in an aristocrat's bathroom to perform a Beethoven symphony with single strings. It's that simple. And why must we even hear otherwise? It's the illogic is so extraordinary. And, I really just have to say, even if it did happen, let's just assume for the sake of argument that this actually happened, unfortunately, these would be the worst performances ever of the pieces in question. They are horrible. These people have no idea what they're doing. Start with the Coriolan Overture. This has got to be the droopiest, dreariest, trudgiest. It's 9 minutes long. I mean, Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony get through it at 6.5. It's 9 minutes long. It's it's awful. It's just awful. And what makes it even worse, of course, is the fact that you have single strings. And you have to remember something. This is really an important thing to remember. It is not a question of just reducing the numbers and having the music basically sound the same. There were arrangements of Beethoven symphonies for other forces, for piano trios or quintets or whatever they were. But those were all very carefully reimagined so that the work, the musical substance, was adapted to the chamber medium so that the pieces could be performed. One of the chamber instruments invariably being a piano, which could make a nice full massive harmony because a piano sounds like a piano no matter what, whether there's an orchestra there or not. But when you have string parts, Beethoven conceived his string parts for multiple forces, always, invariably in his orchestral music. They sound stupid when played by solo strings. They just sound silly because all of the balances are wrong, unbelievably wrong, and they have to wind up playing ostinatos that are just accompanimental ostinatos. They get repeated and repeated, which can sound very beautiful and be very supportive of what the winds are doing when played by the massive strings, and which sound absolutely absurd, like some sort of autistic nightmare when played by solo strings. Let me give you just a couple examples. The scherzo of the Eroica. The scherzo has strings for a long, long time going, right? The woodwinds get the tune. It's okay when you've got a bunch of strings doing it. It creates a nice, warm, furry bedrock of timbral support. But when you have soloists doing it, I mean, first of all, it sings like a hinge. And second of all, it sounds like something's terribly wrong because soloists wouldn't do that sort of thing for so long. Eventually, they'd have to get the tune. They sound like there is a tune that they're supposed to be playing, and so it distracts your attention from the actual thematic substance and the natural balances. Or consider the horns in the Eroica, the coda of the finale. Holy crap. Oh my God. You cannot even hear the horns because they have to be tamped down, because if you hear them, they're going to blow everyone else away. The same thing with the timpani. and even the woodwinds. In order to create balance, you have to totally disfigure Beethoven's dynamic concept. You cannot play the music the way it's written with single strings. It is physically impossible to do it the way Beethoven intended. The Funeral March, holy crap. The Funeral March, well, I already said holy crap. I'll just say holy shit. It's unbelievable. First of all, it's too fast. It's mercilessly fast. I mean, it's a funeral march. Of course, I'm glad it's mercilessly fast, because if they played it at tempo, could you only imagine what that would sound like on solo strings? Holy mackerel. There we go. We'll take fish this time. Holy mackerel. It would just be appalling. Of course, it's appalling at the faster tempo because it's just wrong. It's far too quick. And beyond that, I mean, the climaxes are, I mean, the fugue sounds like the musical equivalent of a groin pull. You know, like, well, I mean, I don't know if you've had that, but you know, you're doing something athletic and something pops in a really bad place. That's what it sounds like. It's grotesque. The development section of the first movement, the giant big pile up in the middle. It's a joke. It's laughable. The whole thing is just, and on top of it all, adding insult to injury, you've got solo strings that sound out of tune, particularly when they're forcing the tone at climaxes. They have to force the tone, otherwise they're not going to be heard. But when they get above whatever stave they're on, especially the violins, sometimes they just go terribly, terribly out of tune. It's really embarrassing. In fact, not only do they deserve the white scarf of irredeemable chutzpah for the concept, they deserve the scarlet scarf of shame for the execution, because the execution is just abysmal. It's absolutely terrible. So, what does that leave us with? Is there anything more that we need to say about this piece of trash? It's just insufferable. And you'd have to be out of your mind, first of all, to buy it. Second of all, to tolerate it. I mean, just the idea that, you know, well, Beethoven might have done it that way. Yeah, right. He might have played it underwater. He might have played it upside down. He might have played it in an insane asylum. He might have done a lot of things. Some of those things may even happen. It's not a justification for doing it now and making a record. And this one is supported by the Ministère de la Justice of Besançon, or whatever that is in France. Aren't they ashamed? Who is giving these people money? Why are they giving these people money? What is the point of giving these people money? So they can do this? So they can inflict this abomination on an unsuspecting public, passing it off under the guise of scholarship? I mean, it's an offense. I mean, here's the CD. The CD. I was going to cut it in half. That would be too good for it. That would be too good for it. It deserves the blowtorch of doom. Here it is, the blowtorch of doom. And here it goes. The blowtorch of doom. Yes. Oh, this feels so good. Look at it. Look at it start to melt as I hit it with the blowtorch of doom. I mean, it's so embarrassing that something like this should be offered to the public. The label, by the way, is Tovey. And Tovey, in case you were wondering, does not pay for these things. They are given money to release this stuff. So these people have money. I'm smoking here. See the smoke? I don't know. But these people evidently have money. They have support. There are people spending taxpayers or subsidy money or corporate money to try and promote this garbage. It is a disgrace. And it is now a toasted, melted disgrace. And it goes straight in the trash. That's where it ought to be. Let's not kid ourselves. This is garbage. It's not music. And I mean, I've had it up to here with these witless losers hiding behind bad scholarship, trying to persuade us that this is a legitimate way to perform this music. It is not. It is absolutely atrocious. So, Wasn't that fun? I mean, it was for me. But seriously, there's got to be a limit to how much of this crap we have to put up with. It is literally Beethoven in the bathroom. Go in an elevator. They didn't have elevators back then. They're teeny tiny. You go in the smallest room of your house, as Max Reger once said, with his review. He said, I'm sitting in the smallest room of my house. I have your review before me. In a moment, it will be behind me. Well, that's where this goes to. Unfortunately, it's plastic, so I can't do with it what Max Reger did with the offending review. And they can't do it with this offending review either because it's digits. It's not even physical. But seriously, who are these people kidding? It's a disgrace. Plain and simple, and I'm done. Keep on listening, folks, to so much other stuff that's worthy. They get the scarlet scarf of shame. They get the white scarf of irredeemable chutzpah. They get the blowtorch of doom. I don't know what else to tell you. Take care.